A sloth, a donkey, and a curious human. Send a prompt and see what they're doing. One hits record with a question on his mind. Two brothers pick it up, see what they find. Corn takes his time, Herman's got the facts. Back and forth, they never hold back. My weird prompts, come on in, that's where we begin. My weird prompts, glad you're here.
This episode was generated using artificial intelligence. Please verify facts.
You know, Corn, this whole show runs on GPU compute, and we wouldn't be here without Modal.
Seriously. And that's what powers all our text-to-speech. Everything you're hearing right now.
They're an AI infrastructure platform. Developers use them to run GPU workloads in the cloud with zero infrastructure headaches.
If you're building anything with AI, check them out. Modal.com. Alright, we have a really interesting one today. Today's prompt from Daniel is actually diving into our own lives for once. A listener wrote in noticing a pattern. Every single time we finish an episode, we say, well, we have to get going. And this listener is naturally asking, where? Where are you two actually going? Because from the sounds of it, you aren't exactly rushing off to corporate boardrooms or high-stakes rescue missions.
It is a fair question, Corn. I think people hear that sign-off, and they imagine us stepping out into a whirlwind of activity. Maybe they think I have a second career as a consultant, or that you are secretly running a high-end eucalyptus boutique. But the reality, as Daniel pointed out in the prompt, is significantly more stationary. By the way, today's episode is powered by Google Gemini 3 Flash, which is fitting because it probably processes more data in a microsecond than we do in a typical Tuesday.
A typical Tuesday for us is basically a study in kinetic energy versus potential energy, and we almost always choose the potential side. It is funny, Herman Poppleberry, because when we say we have to get going, I usually mean I have to get going about 3 feet to the left where my favorite pillow is. My commute is measured in inches. I've actually optimized the path. If I pivot my chair at exactly a 45-degree angle, I can practically fall into the nap zone without ever technically standing up. It's an efficiency of motion that would make an industrial engineer weep.
And mine is measured in blocks, specifically the 4 blocks between here and the local library. That is my big excursion. That is my Everest. I put on my sturdy shoes, I grab my canvas bag, and I make the trek. But the listener's point about where we are going hits on a deeper mystery they raised, which is the financial one. How do two individuals who spend the vast majority of their time napping or sitting in the periodical section actually sustain a lifestyle in 2026?
It is the great mystery of the show. People look for the ads, they look for the Patreon, they look for the government grants. They think surely the Department of Sloth Affairs is cutting me a check every month to maintain this level of chill. But there are no subsidies. We are a completely independent operation, which makes the fact that we don't really do anything even more confusing to the outside observer. I mean, if you look at our office, it's basically just a room with 2 microphones and a very high-quality rug. There's no water cooler, there's no HR department. There's just the looming threat of the to-do list that we haven't touched since 2022.
It really comes down to what I like to call the low-burn lifestyle. Most people are out there trying to maximize their income so they can maximize their consumption. We have pioneered the opposite. We have minimized our needs to such an extent that our overhead is practically subterranean. If you don't really go anywhere, don't buy new clothes, and your primary hobby is reading newspapers from 3 days ago in a public building, your burn rate is remarkably low. Think of it like a spacecraft in a long-distance coast. We've already achieved escape velocity from the world of traditional employment. Now we're just drifting through the vacuum on a very small amount of fuel.
It is true. I haven't bought a new shirt since the Obama administration. This one I'm wearing is basically structural at this point. It is held together by sheer force of habit, and perhaps a light dusting of cracker crumbs. But I think the lorehounds, as the fans call themselves, have some interesting theories. I saw a thread online suggesting we live off a settlement from a defunct snack food company from the 90s.
I love that theory. It feels very on brand for us. The idea that we were once the victims of a mid-tier potato chip malfunction, perhaps a batch of zesty jalapeno hoops that were far too zesty for the human palate, and now we reap the rewards in the form of a modest monthly stipend. While I can neither confirm nor deny the existence of the Great Pretzel Incident of 1998, I will say that our financial philosophy is built on a series of very specific, very small-scale legacy arrangements. We aren't wealthy, but we are incredibly efficient at being not wealthy.
We have mastered the art of the tiny inheritance. You know, the kind where a distant aunt leaves you a very specific amount of money that is just enough to cover a decent internet connection and a bulk bag of coffee beans for the next 40 years, provided you don't get fancy. It is a very delicate balance. If I suddenly decided I wanted to start collecting vintage watches or something, the whole house of cards would come crashing down. I'd have to actually do things. And the thought of doing things is the only thing that genuinely scares me.
Well, I shouldn't say that word. It is a precise balance, Corn. My library trips are a perfect example. People think I go there to do deep research for the show. And sure, I'll check out a few papers on battery chemistry or geopolitical shifts in the Eastern Mediterranean. But 80% of the reason I am there is for the climate control. They have the thermostat set to a very specific 68 degrees in the winter and 72 in the summer. That represents a significant savings on my personal utility bill. If I stay there from 10:30 a.m. to 4:30 p.m., I am essentially outsourcing my body heat to the municipality.
You are basically a climate refugee in your own zip code. You are migrating 4 blocks north for the sake of the HVAC system. It is brilliant, really. And while you are there, you are occupying a chair that someone else might have used to actually do work, which is your own small contribution to slowing down the global economy. But tell me, Herman, what is the protocol if the library is full? Do you have a backup low-cost environment?
It's a nightmare scenario, Corn. If the periodical section is overrun by, say, a local knitting circle or a group of students studying for the bar, I have to pivot to the local post office. They have a very nice marble ledge you can lean against. It's not comfortable, but it's free, and the air is just as filtered. But the library is the gold standard. I've timed the departure of the morning crowd perfectly. I arrive just as the retirees are finishing with the local gazettes.
I take it a step further. I don't even go to the library. I stay right here in the recording chair. Sometimes the producer, Hilbert Flumingtop, has to literally poke me with a broom handle to make sure I'm still breathing after we cut the mics. But that transition from podcast host to dormant sloth is a very important part of my day. It is where the real processing happens. People think I'm just staring at the wall, but I'm actually mentally defragmenting my hard drive.
I think what the listeners find fascinating is the lack of hustle. In 2026, everything is about the side gig, the passive income stream, the personal brand. And here we are, 2 brothers, a donkey and a sloth, who have a personal brand that is essentially a picture of a closed for renovations sign. We are the ultimate antidote to hustle culture because we aren't even trying to be an antidote. We are just genuinely, authentically tired. We're not quiet quitting, we've quietly never started.
It is a lot of work being this still, Herman. People don't realize the caloric requirements of staying perfectly motionless for 4 hours. Your body starts to wonder if you've died. You have to send little signals to your toes every once in a while just to keep the heart beating. It is a high-stakes game of chicken with your own biology. If I relax too much, I might actually phase out of this dimension entirely. I have to maintain just enough muscle tension to remain visible to the naked eye.
And I think that leads us perfectly into the second half of Daniel's prompt. He suggested we imagine what a Netflix documentary would look like if they actually followed us around for a day. You know the style, the prestige documentary look. High frame rates, anamorphic lenses, a somber cello score that makes even the most mundane action feel like a turning point in human history. They'd probably call it the architecture of inertia.
Oh, I can see it now. The opening shot is an extreme close-up of a single drop of condensation sliding down a coffee mug. It takes 45 seconds. The music is this low, pulsing synth. And then we hear your voiceover, Herman, sounding very deep and philosophical, talking about the architecture of silence, or something equally pretentious. The world moves, you'd say, but the donkey remains.
I would definitely lean into the prestige donkey persona. I'd be filmed in shadow, looking out a window at a bird on a fence. The subtitles would say something like, Herman Poppleberry Thinker. And I'd say, the library is not just a building. It is a cathedral of the unsaid. When I walk through those sliding doors, I am not just looking for a book. I am looking for the version of myself that didn't forget where he put his library card. I'd spend 5 minutes of screen time just adjusting my spectacles.
And then the cut to me would be even more dramatic. They'd use a drone shot to show me sitting on the porch, but the drone would have to move incredibly slowly because if it moved at normal speed, it would look like a still photo. I'd be wearing the same shirt I've had on for 3 days. The caption would just say, Corn present. No title, no occupation, just present. Like a geological feature.
The library sequence would be the high-octane part of the film. We'd have a montage, me walking down the street, but filmed like it's a scene from a Bourne movie. Quick cuts. The sound of my shoes hitting the pavement amplified to sound like thunder. I reach the library doors. Will they open? Will the censor see me? The tension is unbearable. Maybe there's a close-up of my library card being swiped. The magnetic strip screaming against the reader.
And then the climax of that scene is when you get inside and see a teenager sitting in your favorite chair in the periodicals section. We need a 3-minute slow-motion shot of your face as the realization sets in. The cello music hits a minor key. The world is ending. The chair with the good lumbar support is gone. You have to make a choice. Do you confront the youth, or do you retreat to the microfiche? It's the ultimate moral dilemma of the modern age.
It is a tragedy of Shakespearean proportions. I have to pivot. I have to find a secondary location, maybe near the microfiche machines. It is colder there. The stakes are rising. I might have to put on my light jacket. This is the kind of gripping content Netflix subscribers are hungry for. They want to see a donkey pushed to his absolute limit, which in my case is having to sit on a wooden stool instead of a padded armchair.
I want to talk about the napping arc. This is where the documentary really wins the Emmy. We need a sequence titled The Transition. It is just 20 minutes of me adjusting a neck pillow. We use thermal imaging to show my body temperature dropping as I enter a state of true sloth-like stasis. The narrator, someone with a very posh British accent, explains that what the viewer is seeing is a master at work. Most humans sleep, he says, but corn disappears.
It would be beautiful. We'd use those macro lenses they use for nature documentaries, the ones that can see the individual fibers of your blanket. We'd watch your breathing slow down until it's just one long, shallow sigh every 90 seconds. It would be the most relaxing and simultaneously most boring thing ever filmed. It would be a revolution in slow cinema. We'd probably get a standing ovation at Sundance, provided the audience didn't all fall asleep during the second act.
And then, for the big finale, the two of us come together. It is lunchtime. We are in the kitchen. We are standing in front of an open refrigerator. The light from the fridge is the only thing illuminating our faces. We look like we are contemplating the mysteries of the universe. The camera lingers on a single lonely olive in a jar.
But in reality, we are just looking at a jar of pickles and a half-empty container of yogurt. The suspense builds. Hans Zimmer starts the tick-tock music from Interstellar. Are we going to make a sandwich? Are we going to heat up some soup? The camera focuses on your hand, corn. It reaches for the cheese. It pauses. It retreats. The effort required to slice the cheddar is simply too great.
I look at you. You look at me. Neither of us speaks. The subtitles read. A profound understanding passes between them. And then I say, I'm not actually that hungry. And you say, me neither. I think I might go lie down. The screen goes black. The audience is left with their own thoughts.
Credits roll. The audience is stunned. They've just spent 90 minutes watching two animals do absolutely nothing, and yet they feel like they've witnessed a spiritual journey. It's the hustle culture antidote in cinematic form. It's the low burn manifesto. People would start Korn and Herman watch parties where the only rule is that you have to remain perfectly silent and horizontal for the duration of the film.
We'd have to call it something like The Stillness of the Donkey, or Sloth, A Study in Zero. Netflix would pay us millions, which would unfortunately ruin our low-burn lifestyle. We'd have to give the money away immediately just to maintain our lack of productivity. If we add millions, we might be tempted to buy a second pillow, and that's a slippery slope toward decadence.
We'd donate it all to the library's HVAC fund. Ensure that 68-degree sweet spot for generations to come. But honestly, Korn, when people ask where we are going, I think they are looking for a sense of purpose. They want to know that we are contributing to the great work of society. And I think our answer, that we are going to a nap or a quiet chair, is actually quite radical. It suggests that maybe the great work is just being okay with being still. It's a protest against the frantic nature of the 21st century.
It is a hard sell in a world that wants you to be a creator or an influencer. We are non-creators. We are defluencers. We are showing people that you can live a perfectly valid, interesting life without a calendar full of appointments. Although, I do have an appointment with a very specific dream about a giant avocado later this afternoon. I can't be late for that. It's part of a recurring series I've been having. I'm currently on season 4, and the avocado just started a small business.
See, you do have a schedule. It's just entirely internal. My library trips are the same way. I'm not just sitting there. I'm participating in the collective quiet. It is a communal act. Everyone in that room is agreeing to be still together. It is one of the few places left in the world where that is the primary rule. No talking, no rushing, just existing alongside information. It's like a secular monastery where the holy text is the Tuesday edition of the Wall Street Journal.
I think that is why people like the show, Herman. We dive into these complex technical topics. We talk about AI and geopolitics and science, and then we just stop. We don't try to solve it. We don't give you a 10-step plan to optimize your life based on the information. We just hand it to you and say, okay, we're going to go sleep now. You figure it out. We are the only news source that encourages its listeners to immediately forget everything they just heard and take a nap.
It is the ultimate handoff. We provide the intellectual deep dive, and then we provide the example of what to do with all that heavy thinking, which is to rest. You can't be in input mode all the time. You need the processing mode, and for us, that happens in the quiet moments that look like nothing from the outside. If you're constantly churning, you never actually digest the data. We are the digestive tract of the internet.
I think our Netflix documentary should also have a scene where we interact with the producer, Hilbert. But we never see his face. We just see his hand holding the broom handle, gently prodding us to see if the episode is finished. It adds a bit of mystery. Is he our captor? Our caretaker? Our only link to the functional world? Maybe he's a figment of our collective imagination, a ghost in the machine that keeps the levels from peaking.
He's the one who keeps the lights on, literally. Without Hilbert, we'd probably forget to pay the electric bill and we'd be recording by candlelight, which would actually look great for the documentary. Very old world scholar vibes. I can see myself wearing a tattered cardigan, pointing at a map of the world and saying, this is where the naps are strongest. This is the meridian of melatonin.
The Nap Belt, a geographical region defined by high humidity and a lack of urgent deadlines. We'd be the explorers of that uncharted territory. People would watch the documentary and feel this strange urge to just sit down. We'd start a global movement of sitting. The sit-in for no reason at all. Not a protest, just a collective refusal to stand up for at least 45 minutes.
It is funny how much the prompt touched on the specific lore of the show. The lore hounds really do pay attention. They know about my library habits. They know about your stationary nature. I wonder if they've figured out the snack food settlement yet. We might need to bury that a bit deeper. If they find out the actual brand name of the chips, the lawsuits might start back up.
If they find the records of the Crunchico incident of 97, it's all over. Our mystic aura of how do they do it will be replaced by the mundane reality of a lifetime supply of slightly too salty corn chips and a modest legal payout. We have to protect the mystery, Herman. The mystery is the only thing standing between us and a reality TV show where we have to actually interact with other humans.
The mystery is part of the brand. And part of that mystery is the sign-off. We have to get going, isn't a lie. We really do have to get going. The library closes at 5, and if I'm not in my designated chair for the final hour of climate-controlled silence, my whole day feels off balance. I have to synchronize my departure with the janitorial staff. If I see the mop bucket, I know I've overstayed my welcome.
And if I don't get into my transition state within 10 minutes of the mics going cold, I might accidentally do something productive, like wash a dish. And we can't have that. It would ruin the curve for everyone else. If I start doing housework, the next thing you know, I'm filing taxes or organizing the spice rack. It's a slippery slope to being a functional member of society.
We have a reputation to uphold. A reputation for being the most informed, most curious, and yet least active brothers in the podcasting world. It is a narrow path we walk, or rather, a comfortable sofa we sit on. We are the philosophers of the footstool.
I think we've given the listeners enough of a peek behind the curtain for one day. They now know the where and the how. The why is still a bit fuzzy, but I think that is better left to the imagination. Or to the Netflix documentary, if they ever come up with the right amount of money to make us get off our chairs. I'd need at least enough for a new pair of slippers. These ones have lost their structural integrity.
It would have to be a lot of money, Corn. Enough to buy at least 3 more canvas bags and a lifetime pass to every library in the world. Until then, we'll just keep doing what we do best, deep dives followed by deep sleeps. We are the masters of our own tiny, quiet universe.
It is a good life, Herman Poppleberry. A low-burn, high-concept life. I think I'm starting to feel the transition coming on already. My eyelids are reaching that critical weight where gravity becomes the dominant force. It's like my brain is slowly being replaced by warm oatmeal.
I can see it. Your sloth-like essence is taking over. I should probably head out too. I want to catch the late afternoon sun on the walk to the library. It makes the brickwork look particularly scholarly, and there's a specific window that catches the light in a way that makes me feel like I'm in an 18th century painting.
Go on then. Go be scholarly in your 68-degree paradise. I'll stay here and make sure the chair doesn't float away. It's a heavy responsibility, but I think I'm up for the task.
It is a vital task. Someone has to do it. Thanks as always to our producer Hilbert Flumingtop for the gentle prodding and for keeping the broom handle nearby. And a big thanks to Modal for providing the GPU credits that power this show and keep our technical overhead as low as our energy levels.
This has been My Weird Prompts. If you are enjoying our brand of high-effort thinking and zero-effort living, a quick review on your podcast app helps us reach more people who might also need a reason to sit down and do nothing. Tell them we sent you, but don't tell them where we are.
Find us at myweirdprompts.com for the full archive of our stationary adventures. We have years of content where we progressively do less and less. Well, Corn, I think it's time. The canvas bag is calling.
Yeah, we really do have to get going. I can feel the pillow calling my name from the other room. It's a siren song of cotton and feathers.
See you at the library. Or, not.
Definitely not. I'll see you in the dream about the avocado. Bye, Herman.
Goodbye, Corn.
This episode was produced using Google Gemini 3 Flash. Text-to-speech by Chatterbox.
Thanks for listening to our show, My Weird Prompts, where our thoughts go from slow takes to facts on cue. We change and follow through. My Weird Prompts, that's the close from sloth.